Hi guys, it's Kelly here and I am back with another video. Today I'm going to be using lots of products from Honeybee's latest release, the Mary Stamps and Dies, the Barnwood background. This cute little bow set is called No Peeking, using the stamps and dies for those. And then kind of the star of the show for this video is these pretty poinsettias and their matching dies. Those were drawn, well, I guess they aren't the star of the show, probably the snow globe shaker is probably the star of the show. I may have misspoke, though I do love the poinsettias. They were drawn by my very good friend Emily Midget. She's amazing and talented, and I love every collaboration set she has done with Honeybee. So here I've just cut out some white cardstock. This is my regular Nina 80-pound cardstock. I'll be doing some die cutting for those. There's 3 pieces with this snow globe shaker die: the frame, the base, and then like the topper piece of the base of the snow globe. So I'm cutting out all of them, just using, my purple tape to hold it down. I will warn you, I'm sure you've already seen, this video is long. This video is long because it is a shaped, interactive card with distress inking and I actually think I used oxides and Copa coloring. So there's just a lot going on. Ultimately for me it was worth it because I love the way the card came out, but this is one of the ones you save for when you're watching your coffee or drinking your coffee and gonna watch in the morning and you're by yourself because it's a long video. I just have a really hard time cutting anything out because I don't want anybody to feel like they cannot make it, because you can. So here I'm just checking to see what my pieces parts look like, and then this base layer is going to be where I'm doing the majority of the work. So the top piece, the top base piece of the snow globe, I'm going to do in this hickory smoke color. And then I'm going to be using lots of browns for the background. In this release, Honeybee has this super farmhouse vibe for a lot of its sets, and I'm totally digging that. I'm here for it. And so I thought that it would be fun to make a shaker, because shakers are traditionally very whimsical or cutesy, and I just thought that it would be a fun idea to kind of make one that was a little bit more sophisticated, that maybe you could send to an adult friend, even though it's a shaker, because let's be real, when we're making these, we're playing with them the whole time, right? I mean, I am. So once I have that covered, I'm also going to add the gray to the base of the base, the base of the base. And then from there, I'm going to start adding in some browns. The base color is going to be my brushed corduroy. And then I'm just going to randomly add some of the darker colors on top of it because I want it to look like barnwood. Now, at the end of the day, we're going to be putting quite a few things over this because my centerpiece portion is so large, but yours certainly doesn't have to be, and I want you to be able to do this for another image that you may own. Or maybe you have a different, poinsettia set that you want to work with, whatever. I want it to look nice for you if you're going to do it. So here, just randomly adding my darker colors, blending back over it with the brushed corduroy, even adding in some of this hickory smoke, just so now it kind of looks just like kind of blurry, crazy mess. But once we add this barnwood background over top of it, and I'm not even going to take it completely out of its packaging, I find that the large stamp sets work best when I flip over my project on top of them. So again, I picked a middle of the road one. I think this is the Gathered Twigs. It's like my middle color to stamp the background because I don't want it to be super in your face, but I don't want it to get lost in the background either. So I'm just going to go ahead and cover this up. The Distress Oxides stamp amazing. Distress inks not so much, but oxides stamp really great. And you could do this with inks if that's what you own, Distress inks. I just would recommend getting another brown color to stamp in because the Distress ink stamping is kind of splotchy. So grabbed a spare piece of paper, just put that over there, and then I'm going to use one hand to hold it in place, and I'm going to press with my other hand until I'm pretty sure I've got a relatively good impression. And then I'm just going to flip it off the top of it, and we'll have our little barnwood there, which is adorable. And then this piece is pretty much done for now. I'm going to set it aside. Here's all of my pieces parts for the stamping. For the no peeking set, really the only thing I used was that little tag. And I do have another video coming up with them where I'll be using much more because I do think it's a super versatile set. But for this one, I only used the tag. I'm just going to stamp these down in Copic Safe ink. I use several different kinds. Today I'm using Hero Arts. What is this one? Intense Black. That's whatever one their Copic Safe one is. That's the one I'm using. And then because these are the first time I've used them, I did end up stamping them twice to make sure that I got a nice dark impression. I also probably need to re-ink my ink pad. Not going to lie to you, it happens. I don't even know if I own a re-inker for it. I probably need to get on Hero Arts and buy one. But so there's that, and then I'm going to fill in that blank space with my extra greenery that I want more of. So the berries that are included, I totally love these. I think they're great fillers to create like a large bouquet, or in my case, it's really more of like a boutonniere or a spray. And then on a separate piece, I'm going to stamp my poinsettia. I just ran out of room for that piece of cardstock, and I just try to use ones that I already have cut when I'm going to be die cutting, like whatever I have laying around my desk that's already cut out. So stamping that down, and then I decided to go with a white poinsettia. It's been a hot minute since I colored anything white, and I knew that I was going to have, like, I wanted the berries to be red, and I wanted the bows to be red, and so I just wanted something that was going to be contrasting. In order to color anything white, we've talked about it, but it's been a while, so we will revisit. In order to color anything white, you're just adding in the shadows. So you do want to leave white on whatever object it is that you're coloring. So for me here with these petals, I am leaving the edges white. I am only adding shadows to the center of the petals, and then anywhere they're tucked up under another petal. I start with my lightest color, work out to my darkest, from my darkest back out to my lightest. That's just the way that I color everything. But for me, because I am heavy-handed, whatever color I start with first will be the color that I put down the most of. I have no idea how to break that habit. It's just the way that I color. But because I know that about myself, I can compensate for it by starting with my lightest color. So once that's down, then I'm going to go in, and you're going to see that for the vast majority of it, I'm not adding very much. A line here or there. I'm not trying to eat up my highlight. So just trying to add in the darkest parts, and it's going to look gray. Okay, it is, because there's no other color around it to help it look white. Right now it's just white on white, and so your flower is going to look super gray. Don't worry about it. If you start to think that it's getting too gray, pull out like a colored piece of paper and put it on top of it. So that way you can see that it does still look white, that you're not coloring a gray flower. And then, just keep kind of going and working. You'll see that my darkest color that I went out to, I think was a C7, but I only put that in one part of the flower. So like, just because I pulled out 4 colors doesn't mean that every petal got all 4 colors. It certainly did not. But I needed to have it there's one petal that's under like 2 other layers of petals, and it's tucked back real deep into the center of the flower, and I needed it for that, because otherwise my dimension wasn't going to be there, because it needed to be dark in just that one little corner of the flower. So almost done with the C3, and then we'll move on to the C5, which we'll add even less of. This is really just kind of getting the outline of the petals and then the center of them. So for the 5, it's going to go super quick, because I'm getting where the petals meet each other, and then just like one quick flip up the center, because it would be darker toward the base, and it will get lighter as it goes out towards the center of the flower. So not adding much of this at all. Like I said, just some quick little lines, but you'll be surprised in your coloring how much just a line of darker color will change your dimension because of that contrast. So don't be afraid of the darker colors. And I mean, and really a C5 is more like a medium. It's not even like a dark color. But here we're going to go in with that C7, and here's just that one little pocket. We're going to put that in, and that's it. Now I'm going to go, I blended it out with the C5, and now I'm going to go back in with just the C1. I'm going to skip the C3 completely because I didn't put in enough of the C5 to really need to blend it out with the C3, and I wasn't trying to add any more darkness in. I just want to blend them together at this point. So again, just reiterating those highlights, my edges of my petals are still white, and then I'm just blending the shading that we've added for the shadows. It looks super gray, it looks super dark. I know that, you know that, we're looking at the same flower here, but trust me that when it gets put into the card with all of the other color around it, it really will look white and not gray. I know I keep saying that, but it's for people who have never watched anybody, myself or anybody else, color something white. It does get a little scary when you're doing it yourself for the first time. It's a little scary, but just hang tight because it will look the way it's supposed to look. So these are the colors that I've picked for the center. Typically, I would, in place of the Y19, I would use a Y08. But mine seems to have gone MIA. I'm not really sure where it's ended up. I'm not sure if a child has it, if a dog got it, if it got, I don't know, fell down the back of something. I'm not really sure. But the 19 is close enough for government work, and we will be able to use that to blend out the center of this and still make it look that pretty golden yellow color. So doing the same thing that I did with the poinsettia, just adding in that shading and leaving the highlight on the edges, and then just blending back over it. I do blend with all of my colors, but you probably don't have to. You could probably skip one of them because it's such a small little area that they would blend pretty well. So that poinsettia is done, and we are moving on to the coloring of everything else. Picked out like a classic red combo for this bow. I thought that that would be super pretty up against this white poinsettia. And then I'm just going to do the same thing that I've been doing. Any point where two things meet will have shading, and any point where two things are laying on top of each other will have shading. You will also see me add shading here for this specific one to the tails, like where the tails meet each other. I'm going to add a little bit of shading up into the ribbon, and that's just to give the illusion that it's more kind of folded in. And then the shading for the center of the bow, I'm going to be bringing it in from the edges to give that, again, a more just rounded appearance. So we're 13 minutes into this video and we have one thing colored. Congratulations to us. It's a long one, and I know it is. Even when I was editing it, I was like, is there anything else that I could take out of here? But I just get so apprehensive for people to feel like they can't follow it step by step if they want to make it themselves, that I just leave it in. And then, so feel free to skip around. Like if you're like, I know how to color bows, this ain't my jam, I want to know how to put the shaker together, jump toward the back. If you're like, I know how to put a shaker together, but I need help with coloring, this is where you want to be. You know what I'm saying? As far as life goes, we have been, the same things that we've always been doing. We've been doing some furniture, been doing, I haven't even really done any Christmas shopping yet, I gotta be honest, and I'm starting to get a little bit nervous because everybody's buying everything online this year. I do have intentions of going to my store one day, to pick some things up, but we really have not been doing, we haven't been going anywhere. We're going to work and we're coming home. It's pretty much where we're at. I do all my grocery shopping online now, but in order to make sure that my dear sweet child has something to open on Christmas, I think I'm going to have to venture to this. Recently seen somebody local here had posted on Facebook that they went to go mail something at the post office to get to their family members in another state, just like they would on any other year. And the post office was like, if it's like today is the last day to mail it for it to arrive on Christmas. And that was like the 5th of December. So I know there was something that my mom ordered for somebody else in the family, and then something that Eric ordered that both of them, even though they were supposed to be here before Christmas, both have gotten notifications saying that they won't be here until, I think Eric said it would be here on Christmas Day, and my mom said that it would be here in January. So lots of shipping concerns. So I do think that I'm going to have to just suck it up, Sally, one day, go to the store, and then just knock it out in the one day. So we'll see. We will see. Yeah. So that's where we're at on the Christmas shopping. We are all decorated for Christmas. Oh, I didn't even address, because it's been so long since I had a video, I forgot to tell you. My COVID test was negative. Sorry. Yeah, it was negative. I don't know if I just had a weird, like, sinus infection thing. I know there's been a couple of people at work who have had it. Another lady that I work with, she thought that she had it, and then she tested negative, and so it turned out to just be a regular sinus infection. Thankfully, like, she does not have it, but it does seem to be, more prevalent in my little bubble now than it has been before. And I don't know if that's just because it's cold and flu season, or if because people are just like, I'm over this curfew lockdown thing and I'm gonna go do what I want to do. I'm not really sure what the influx is from, but we're, I gotta go to work. It is what it is. Just try to disinfect my desk, and they do have a cleaner who comes in daily and cleans all the desks, and you disinfect your desk when you sit down, and then pretty much I just stay in my little area when I'm there. We're fortunate enough that we have a big enough space that we can spread out, so I don't have anybody on either side of me. So I'm just, by myself. I am sitting back to back with somebody, so there's like 4, is there 4? Yeah, there's 4 spots. And we call it a pod, so nobody's right on top of each other. It's like a U shape. And then, so I have somebody who sits catty corner to me, but we're back to back. So there's that. But I am very nervous about Christmas. As you know, I missed Thanksgiving with my family because I was apprehensive that I might have it. And I just really don't know. Just really don't know about Christmas. And I am very just anxious about the whole thing. And I know I'm not the only one. I'm not the only person living that life. So, as far as, like the furniture thing, that's been going pretty well. Up until this china cabinet. This china cabinet is my china cabinet. So, of course, I mean, I would much rather things go wrong on my china cabinet than other people's items. That's for sure. But so we had like a week-long break in between projects that we were doing for other people. It feels weird to me to say clients. I don't know why. Customers, clients, I don't know. Other people. I'm comfortable saying that. And so we had like a week in between where we just had this one bench that we were working on. And the bench was relatively, I don't want to say, I mean, it was a good sized bench, and it was a storage bench, but it wasn't anything that was like a whole table set or anything like that. And so we decided that Eric was going to work on the bench and I was going to work on our china cabinet. So at least one room in our house was done. And so we took everything apart, like the buffet and the hutch, and then took off all the hardware, cleaned everything really well, scuff sanded it. And then we used, what is it? Zinsser shellac based primer. That's what we used. And because it's shellac based, it's supposed to seal in any bleeding that you might have, because I wanted to paint the inside of the hutch and the inside of the buffet white. I thought that would look super pretty, the inside white, and then the outside is like a pine mountain color. And so that was that was the game plan. So I needed to seal it off, because when I painted my end tables, this was quite some time ago, this was at the beginning of summer, I did have bleeding through my white paint. And apparently that's something that's very, very common. And I didn't want to risk it with the china cabinet. So we did 2 coats of this shellac based primer. And then I did 3 coats of linen white chalk paint on the insides. Then I had to go through and tape off everything, tape off all the insides, so that I could do my color. So we taped everything off and then put up like craft paper because I was worried about it dripping on the inside because, like all the windows and everything are open and I didn't want like splatter getting in there. So we taped off everything, put up the craft paper, and like, so then I should be good to go. The only part that was like open was the door of the hutch and the door of the buffet. And then I started painting with my green color, which was Bayer chalk paint. And I've used this before and had no issues whatsoever. But this one, I don't know what's happening. I don't know if it's the combination of the shellac and the chalk paint, which seems to be like a very common combination for people. So I'm not sure. I'm not sure if it's because the paint was outside at one point and maybe it got too cold, or if it's just the fact that it's chalk paint and chalk paint thickens up over time. I'm not really sure. Going back to the card real quick. So I colored my pine cone with the E20 family, and now I'm just going to go back in with that E21 and add some highlights where maybe it got a little bit too dark. Lighter colors will remove a little bit of color to add back in a highlight if everything is colored, and the white, we can't obviously add back in the white because it's white. I am adding a little bit of shading to my tag here with the same grays, but not a ton. And then I'm going to move on to the leaves and the pine needles. I used 2 different color green combinations just because I wanted there to be some variety. Plus, they're not the same. You know what I'm saying? Poinsettia leaves are not the same color as pine needles, and I didn't want them to be any confusion about them being the same. So, I started painting this china cabinet, and the first layer went on like every first layer does. I mean, it's not completely solid. I did do a combination of brushing and rolling. So I would get I'd hit all my corners and everything, and then I would roll all the flat surfaces. And it seemed to be going okay. It dried for 6 hours. And the can says that you can recoat in 2 hours. So now I've waited 4 hours past when I need to recoat. And when I start putting on the second layer, and it doesn't even have any rhyme or reason. Like where it pulled up, there were just parts that pulled up, like as I was painting or rolling them. And it didn't matter if I used the roller or if I used the brush. There was just parts that were pulling up. So that was a little bit disheartening. Then the third layer, again, it just seemed like the paint was getting thicker and the finish was getting like chunkier. I don't know. So I sanded it in between the second and the third layer, and then I sanded it again after the third layer. And I was like, well, maybe if I just put the top coat on it, like I've sanded it smooth, so maybe if I just put the top coat on it, like it should be good. So I did like a little test piece and it didn't look terrible. So I was like, okay, well, this is what I'm going to do. So for the door, the drawer, and then the other door, I did top coat, and oh my gosh, guys, it looks like I put the paint on with a wool coat. Like, honestly, it looks like I was just like, it's so textured. So pretty much all of last night I was just like super bummed out about it because I was like, I've already devoted all of this time to it. It looks like trash. And so I had done some research, and I did know that people had talked about how chalk paint is thicker and it leaves brush strokes, but because the first time I used this particular brand of paint, it did not do that. I just didn't even necessarily equate that that's what was happening. Now I do think that's what's happened. That's my personal opinion. I think that's what's happened. So last night I just accepted my fate, and I so aggressively sanded it. Not all the way to bare wood, but so that the paint is flat. And then my game plan is to thin out my paint, to add some water to it because it's chalk paint. To add some water to it to thin it out, and then do a couple of thin layers and see if that in fact will smooth out my paint job. So I will let you know whether or not that works. But in the meantime, pray for me. So now that I've outlined everything, I'm going to go ahead and put my dies in place to cut these out. Especially with the berries, the matching dies were just like such a time saver. And then here I'm kind of seeing like building up where I want everything to go. And then I'm going to glue it from top to bottom. What this means is I'm going to pull off the top piece. I'm going to add the glue to the bow where it's going to touch the flower. So in essence, I'm just going to glue the bow to the flower. And then that way I can pick up that whole piece. And this one, like the little leaf got in there too. And that's fine. I'll just add some glue there while it's hanging on. And then I'm going to glue the next thing so that it becomes one massive solid piece is my game plan. And then I can just glue that whole thing down. I'm not going to lie to you. I was very nervous about doing die cuts in a shaker because I didn't want my sequins to get caught behind them or caught where they wouldn't move over the image because it was raised up. But it really did work okay. I would not recommend like popping them up on foam and then putting them in a shaker. I just didn't want it to, I'm going to be honest with you. There was so much going on. I just didn't want to take the time to mask it all. I just didn't. So I didn't. And then if you love a white outline, that's totally cool. You can leave the white outline. I don't love a white outline. Y'all know that. That's no secret on my channel. I love the convenience of a die cut, but I do not love the outline that it leaves. So I'm going to mask mine. I'm just going to find some Copic markers that are the same color as my background. So for the brown, I color anything that was up against the barnwood, and you can just see how it disappears. The white outline just vanishes, and then it looks like the image is stamped directly onto that background. And then anywhere, like whatever the color behind it was, is what I colored it. So if like this petal that's laying over the green leaf, I'm not going to color that brown. I'm going to color it green because that's the color behind it. I hope that makes sense. Anything that's on the outskirts of it where it's being, up against the brown, I colored it brown. Anywhere that it was like laying on top of the leaves and it was green, I colored it green. The top of the bow, I left white because it's up against this white flower. Here I have some leftover packaging that I'm using. You can use, whatever works for you. They do sell acrylic sheets or acrylic note cards you can cut apart. I just have this and I'm cheap. So I went ahead and put some glue down. I did not put a ton of glue down because you don't want it to leak out onto your clear surface. I just put down a little bead of glue and then adhered this. It's obviously cut into a rectangle, and I'm going to trim out. You could run it through your die cutting machine with the die, especially if you have thicker acrylic. I would recommend you put like a protective sheet over it because if your plates look anything like mine, sometimes I forget and I cut up instead of cutting down, and there's just a lot of impressions in them from my dies, and so I didn't want to mar my window in any way, which is why I decided to do it this way. If you want to use the die, by all means, like I said, I would just put something down to protect it so that it doesn't do any damage to your clear window. For any shaker, you have to have foam tape. You have to have foam tape. Well, I shouldn't say that. There's some people who are making them out of pockets, and that's brilliant. But for this type of shaker, you got to have foam tape. And there has to be no gaps in between your foam tape. Your foam tape needs to be butted up against your foam tape because if there's any gaps, your sequins or whatever filler you're using is going to just slide right out the side. Just slide right out the side door. And we don't want that. So for this one, I did do one layer of foam tape. Usually I do two. Usually I do 2 layers of foam tape to give my items plenty of room to move around. But in this one, I only did one. It still worked. I just didn't want it to be super bulky. I am taking my anti-static bag, my powder bag, and just lining the edges on the inside so that the side of the tape isn't sticky and my little guys don't stick to that. And then I'm going to remove all of this tape, which took a hot minute, not gonna lie to you. And then I am going to adhere that down. You can see I've already put my clear sequins in the center there. And then I'm going to put this over top of it. Please make sure you put your sequins or whatever filler you're using into your card first. So I'm just doing that, and then I'm going to shake it around to make sure they're moving, and they certainly are. And then I'll play with it for a little while, because that's what I do. Who doesn't make a shaker and then doesn't play with it? So then after this step is done, really it's just putting together all of the pieces, parts on the front, like the decor pieces. I did forget about this. I wanted it to look like frosty, like a frosty little shaker. So I have some white acrylic paint and a stiff bristled brush. I am going to use some purple tape to kind of mask the corners. I wasn't so much worried about the white frame because, it's white, but I was worried about getting it on the gray. And so I'm just going to tap this kind of into the corners and then around like the top part of it, so that it would have like this little frosty globe look, which I thought was kind of cute and fun. Just a little something extra, I guess. I'm all about the details. Y'all know that. And then, like I said, I'm going to do the top around there. If I had the opportunity, like if the tape would fit, I did use it to mask off the frame. But then eventually I gave up on the tape because I just couldn't make it stick anymore. And so I just put that paint right on top of the frame, and I'm looking at it right now. You can barely see it. Real talk, you can barely see it. So there's that. And then I also wanted to, because I love the glitters. I love the glitters very much. I'm going to put this together first. This is just like the little decoration portion of it. So I have these cute little pine needles. I'm going to tuck some berries in behind it. And then this is going to complete my, my sentiment. I was going to say sentence. It's going to complete my sentence, which I guess kind of is. But really it's going to complete my sentiment. Again, doing the little trick around the white portion of it. I did leave it white at the top. It just didn't seem like I didn't have a good color to color it. You know what I'm saying? So for this little tag, which I am using the regular Hero Arts black dye ink, in this set, there's a little teeny tiny one that says "and bright," so merry and bright. So I stamped this kind of at a diagonal to finish my sentiment, which I thought was super cute. And then I tried it with, I'm be honest, like you see my baker's twine up there. I tried it with the full baker's twine, like maybe wrapping it around there. But I didn't like it. It was too bulky. It was too thick. It just really was not making my heart go pitter patter. So I'm going to glue on the Mary, this is the, just the word, not with any of the, like it has a stitched outline and a regular outline. And then I'm going to put that in there once I, get my stuff together. And I'm going to tuck my little Y there underneath this little pine needle. And then that's going to be where I end up putting my tag as well, so that it reads merry and bright. And I did not use the baker's twine. What I ended up doing was pulling it apart. You can see my little leftovers up there. And just using the black to make a little tiny bow to finish that off. If you have any other, thinner threads or anything, that would also work. This is just what I had on my work surface, and I was too lazy to find something else. So that's that. So once I put the bow on it, I did, which I don't even know if I showed you, but I did go back to add, yes, I did show you. Good for me. I did add some stickles to the berries on the outside, and then I kind of outlined the pine cone so it would look like snow. Not that it's white, it's not, but, glitter snow. Snow's glittery, kind of. And then I did do like a series of little dots into my frosty area so that would also be nice and glittery. And I think it came out super cute. It's like more sophisticated shaker. If you've made it to this point, you are a saint. Let's be real. I totally appreciate you hanging in there with me. And my bright was kind of a little floppy, so I ended up like putting a little piece underneath it to hold it up. and so that it was flush. But that's now am I done? Am I ever going to be done? Now I'm done. Okay. So thank you guys so much for joining me. I genuinely appreciate you hanging in here. I know it's a long video. I will hopefully be back soon with another video, and I will catch you then. Bye.